sometimes your first identity may have not been your authentic identity. And maybe it was just you going through those, I guess, beautiful milestones of growth, right? But I find that the most important part is really figuring out like what are you here to do, but also like who you are as a person, like what are the things you love, and that's where you start to really look at from different categories. And they talk about the branding pillars, but when it comes to your brand personality or building a personal brand, there's so many variables of that. But from a business sense, and for anyone listening, they teach you, or like, let me say this, the guru of branding teach you, like, as I said, like the look and feel. I want to know the connection, and that's where you start to look at your stories.
Welcome to the Thriving Workplace Podcast,
the show that empowers your workplace to make a positive impact on your people, teams, and the entire organizational community.
Whether you're an employee, manager, or executive, we've got something for you.
Dive into inspiring ideas, practical tips, and meaningful conversations about employee well-being.
We're your hosts, Lauren and Jason, passionate workplace well-being champions from the Workplace Performance and Wellbeing Institute.
Join us as we bring in renowned experts and thoughtful leaders to share their wisdom, experiences, and innovative approaches to building a thriving workplace. Welcome back to another episode of the Thriving Workplace Podcast. This week, we're joined by an absolute queen. She's coached hundreds of men and women, helping to achieve their goals in both business and personal development. She's a national keynote speaker for branding, business, and marketing, and she's the host of the Keys to Queendom podcast, where she's interviewed the likes of Dr. John Demartini, Daniel G, James Smith, just to name a few. But what I love most about this woman is her absolute fireball energy she brings, whether she's on stage, a mentoring call, or even a podcast just like this one. So please welcome to the Thriving Workplace Podcast, Tamara Myer. Hello.
What a fucking entrance. Thank you so much. I'm going to take the energy up. Let's bring in the big dick energy. So happy to be here, guys.
Hello.
Thank you so much. I'm excited for this. I think listeners, bear with us. This is going to be a different podcast, but it's going to be amazing because Tamara, as you'll find out, is very authentic. And that's what we love about her. So let's give the listeners a little bit about you and some context. Who is Tamara? Where did you start? What are you doing now?
I love this story. I love it, love it, love it. So I always begin with the fact that I am a bit of a gypsy at heart, and growing up for us, I came from a very dysfunctional family, and not being born in Australia. I was born in Germany, my mum being from Brazil. So you can imagine she is this pocket rocket of a queen, and so am I. But for us, it was all about the dysfunctionality of our upbringing, a lot of stress, a lot of hardship. So we moved around all the time, and coming to Australia, it was navigating through the change of culture, the change of environment. And I think the biggest pinnacle moment I like to talk about when it comes to authenticity and managing stress, I think the first piece of that being felt was at 12 years old. We experienced being homeless on the streets. And that was because my father was a gambling addict and among other things too. And growing up for us, I felt like I was always on survival and perseverance. And I think that's kind of led me to where I am now, from that first instant of experiencing hardship to then being where I am now in the business space. I traversed through so many different career changes and evolved. But I think that's why authenticity is so important to me, because I think I was always wanting to help people and I just didn't know how to help people. But I think I went through so many variables of change that I finally found what I wanted to do. And that was from being a professional dancer and actor, veering into the fitness space, being a professional athlete, building an app, and to then finally finding that with all of those different lenses and identity, I think I was just pretending to be someone I wasn't. And I think that came back from all the years of trying to be fitting in, of self-acceptance and being loved and seen and validated. And I think over time, I finally found that I really wanted to help people in the business space. And from someone that experienced being on the street to now building empires and helping other people build empires, I've really seen the importance of, authenticity, managing yourself, healing yourself, and being true to who you are and what you serve. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love how you touched on that authenticity, because literally when I think of who do I know in my space who's authentic, it's you and Jordan who come to mind. Because what I see on social media is what I see off social media, which is amazing. It's so cool. When you were on stage, you were dancing and you're a professional athlete. You mentioned that you realize that you had these masks on. What did that feel when you realized that and you were able to take that mask off and to become the person who you are today?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I'll give you an example. When I was first dancing, like professionally, we would constantly be going to different auditions, and it was always about playing the part, and it was always about being someone you're not. And that's not to take away from being a performer, but I felt like I was always trying to fit the mold. And as a dancer, it was, being small, looking a certain way, being judged based on like your skill set, your talent, your looks. And then it was, with the fitness stuff, it was kind of similar, but it was also about like the significance of stage, of winning that pro status. And I think when I finally felt I could just be me, I think it was actually someone saying to me recently, a couple of years ago, that you apologize for your energy. And it's like, you shouldn't do that anymore. And it was when I was, doing podcasts for the very first time, or when I've, transitioned to the business stuff, it was, people could feel that there was more of me. And I used to always be told, slow down, you're being too much, like this is like, wow, like we can't handle it. And it wasn't until someone said to me, like, be more of that. And so I think that was like the best feeling. And I love that you say that about Jordan and I, because, I think it's so important when we're building businesses and being true to who we are, like being who you are is like probably the best way and the only way to really build a business. And then obviously that's when you build the foundations of everything. So it felt like a breath of fresh air. It was like this big weight lifted off my shoulders.
Yeah. I feel like being authentic, it just reduces so much stress. Like you said, that weight off your shoulders, that pressure that we put on ourselves to be a certain way. And I know that so many people that we've spoken to in this space that we are, in with WPWI, in this corporate space, people will feel like, when they step in the doors of work, they have to be a different person. And especially in the corporate space for women, it's quite a masculine dominated space majority of the time. They feel like they have to be like that too, masculine, and put this sort of face on, this mask on, put their wall up. And then at home, they're a completely different person. And I know that Jason and I, we really believe, bring a whole person and whole self to work. But I know that's really challenging. So I'm wondering what you would say to someone maybe listening to this who is like, yeah, this is really great, Tam, sounds amazing, but I don't know how to start. I'm really scared. I have a lot of fear. Where do they begin?
Oh my God, so beautiful. You know what? I remember I was doing this exercise and it was like, what are you like when no one's watching? And that was the first thing that I was like, holy fuck, I am being someone I'm not. So I think it's the awareness piece, but then how do you lean into that? And I think it's part of what I like teaching to people. And it's kind of like giving that first permission slip, or almost like sharing it for the first time, having that first initial realization. So when you have that awareness, like who do you tell and who do you speak to about that? And I think that's the second piece to that is like, who can you start to lean into to go, hey, I want to be more, and it sounds weird to say this in a workspace, but I want to bring more of me to this, like ask the question in that leadership space or in that work environment, like, I would love some support around this. Do I have permission to start, being more of my authentic self, obviously in the environment and culture of the business? And look to those people that will hold you to a standard and own that too. I think that's a big piece. I used my social media platform as that permission slip, especially when I went from being this transitional like identity from fitness to business. It was like, I'm going to tell people like I'm going through this change and I want to show up more in this world. Go on a ride with me. Let me know what you think. And if you want to do it too, then let's do it. So I think it's awareness, speaking to someone that you look up to help you with that. And just start with small things, if it's, like how you speak, if it's how you dress, if it's, if you're enjoying a glass of red wine and, you're okay with that, like show more of those things, because you'd be actually quite surprised how when you start to bring more of your values and similarities to the table and in a work environment, it creates a culture, it creates a ripple effect, and then more people will start to see how amazing it is to be themselves, right?
Yeah, 100%. Being that permission piece. And I feel that when people become more themselves and they're, a bit more confident and they're happy to show up as that version of themselves at work, it does create that culture, because then people lean in and they feel that sense of connection because there is a truth there. Whereas, you struggle to build true, authentic connections and have true, authentic relationships with people that aren't truly themselves, because you feel the walls are up. You feel that they've got a mask on. There's just an energetic something happening there. And we all know that having that connection and that social support is the number one thing to build resilience and to help us through, mental health challenges and all those sorts of things.
And I think that's a great topic around mental health. And again, like whether it's just that awareness piece, I think more and more people are starting to see like we can talk about this stuff. We can talk about being authentic. We can bring things to the table and as you said, build that community too, because I think at the end of the day, we all want to feel like we're belonging to something and also accepted and loved at the end of the day. That's true authenticity, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's so true that when you do finally take that mask off, you do step into that authenticity, that everything starts to build. So if I was to reflect on, say, my journey, when I was a teacher, I would be wearing a mask. I'd walk in, I'd wear this mask because I had to be the professional in the room. And it wasn't until a couple of years into my teaching career that I realized, hey, if I just take this mask off, be who I am, have fun with the kids, not only will I enjoy work a little bit more, the kids will be able to better their academics. They will have more fun. So that was the teaching, but then transitioning into WPWI as well, I found myself wearing a new mask. Like you said, it's a new identity. So I put this new mask on thinking that I had to be this type of person. And it wasn't until I realized that, took that mask off, was true to myself, where everything started to come in. I was able to speak on stage at an event a couple of weeks ago to 400 to 500 different people to share my story.
What?
Yeah, no.
Big.
How cool, yeah. But it wasn't until I was able to take that mask off that I realized, I can be myself. People can see who I want to be. And then we're able to bring all this success and all that joy back into our lives.
Really seen that journey with you, Jace, actually.
I
Yeah, at the beginning of this sort of personal growth journey, right? Like, 18, 20 months ago now, we started and went to that event that we met you at. And I just remember both of us, to be honest, being quite in our shell and lacked that sense of confidence and self-esteem. And we didn't really know 100% where we wanted to go. And I feel like we needed someone to allow us that permission, like you said, and actually open our eyes to bigger and better things and, take on that belief that they have in us. You can do it. And, get rid of the fear of people judging you or whatever it is that you have that inner critic in your mind. Like, move past that, acknowledge it, build that awareness, but then know that you're actually worth more than that. And who cares if you stuff up something on stage? People laugh because
100%.
they like that you're a human being. If you're just up there being a robot, you've got your notes, you're scared of saying something wrong, quotation mark, they just don't connect with you and relate to you. And I feel that now you have grown into being a bit more authentic and confident. I saw you on stage and there's a different energy about you. And you're just so much happier and vibrant and everyone's vibing with you and you're connecting with the audience. Whereas before you were like so self-conscious and I've got to get it right, stuck in your head. But then there's also a piece in that, which we're going a little bit off, but it's true, that it's about the audience too. And I feel like when we're stuck in our own heads of getting everything right and we need to be this certain way, it's like we're making it about us when in the end it's meant to be about them. And I feel like that comes into business and comes into corporate workplaces too, especially when you're dealing with customers or clients. It's like, stop, putting yourself in your own head about what they're thinking about you. Let's put it in a service space of let's serve them. Let's do the best we can for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is such a great segue around when we talk about stress and here to serve too. I find when I'm in my head, that's when stress and scarcity comes in and that's when I start to get overwhelmed.
Definitely.
I think my biggest thing is now, which is probably what you guys said to me before this beautiful podcast, it's like, how's everything? Like, there's a lot going on. But I find when I come back to this and to serve, that's when everything just sort of feels more grounded. And I'd love to be like that all the time, which would be lovely. But, we sometimes fall into those little moments of like, that's right, I have to remind myself why I'm here and what I'm here to serve.
Yeah. That's so true. And I feel like we're stepping more into that. When you're clouded and you have lack of clarity, lack of direction, you don't really know what you're doing, you have lack of belief in yourself, you struggle to maybe open up a little bit more and tap into your heart space. And now that we've got clarity and we're in this path and direction of serving, we want to spread the message of well-being and stress management and being able to be an authentic self. That's why we've got you on the podcast, Tam. Now we can open up our heart space a little bit more. So on that, Tam, I'd love to know, when you feel yourself close off and maybe you feel those masks start to creep in just a little bit again, because we're all humans, right? We're not going to be perfect every single day and have it right. So when you start to notice that, what do you do to allow yourself to open?
Gosh, I find that there's so many variations of this depending on what's going on in my life. But I definitely find, like, from a business standpoint, when I feel like there is a lack of looking after myself, or it's like putting everything before me, I realize that can affect the business, and it's a mirror, right? And I always come back to the basics of like my health, and I think coming from a fitness background and dance background, even though that back in the day that health was a little bit different, it's more about like knowing that I'm here to support my clients, my team, myself. So it's health. And even why I'm having water right now, it's just those little things that, feels like it's nothing. It's the basics that make it count. So I look after my training and, for me, even just the environment, I'm so grateful that we get to be over in the Gold Coast, but not everyone might be in an environment that may be suited. I think it's to find that environment when that happens, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's stepping outside, whether it's calling a friend. An environment can also be a person, So I think also voicing and physiology, you guys would know too, sometimes like outside of like looking after your health, sometimes you have to put on your favorite music, dance to Taylor Swift. Jason, I know you love her. And,
let's go.
I think what one of the most important things I always remember one of my mentors says, it's like, is it really that bad? And sometimes we put this big emphasis and this thing around it really being this big, horrible thing when really it's not. And sometimes we need to take a step back and go, what is it? The hero pose? Let's fucking go. And I think it's just those moments like that. The basics make a massive difference. Do you teach those stuff with your stress project?
Yeah.
Definitely. Sometimes I feel like, this is foundational stuff, but it's actually the importance. And we go sometimes our whole lives or a period of time where we forget to check in and are we doing the foundations? Are we doing the basics? And as much as it sounds simple, are you actually doing them? Because the simple things are the things that work, and nothing really is rocket science. And I'm sure you find that with business and marketing and branding, right? It's not necessarily rocket science and the genius has to do this certain thing to make it work. But it's like coming back to the simple things, doing it consistently, do it for 30 days and you're going to feel amazing. So 100% that's what we teach. And I feel like sometimes because me and you, Jace, we do these things so much, and we have been for a while now, that we forget that maybe some people don't. That some people forget to maybe have their lunch breaks and have a proper nutritional meal, that they forget to go out and get some sunlight and go for a walk in nature, move their body, maybe do some breathing, because we do it so much. Yeah. So it's so important for us to, especially when we start with a new client, begin with that. Let's lay the foundations, because you can't run before you walk.
Yeah. It's the same with like consistency. So that beautiful word, if you're thinking about building a brand, or if you're wanting to really focus on the consistency of being authentic, it's just having that tracker, what does that look like? What are the levels of that? And you start from the base, as you said, the foundations. And some people think a brand is logo, and it's not. It's like, what's your key message? What do you stand for? And who are you as a person? And that gets to be such a really cool thing to explore. But it's the consistency piece, you guys, like that nailed for me, 100%.
Yeah. I do want to dive into not necessarily branding as such, but branding as a person. You just said then, coming up and being authentic, and like, as we've been talking, and being that consistency. If someone wants to go, hey, I want to step into a new version of me. I know we talked about removing masks and things. How could they say, what's the first steps to saying, hey, I want to step into a whole new version of me?
Oh my God, I'm teaching this at my event, and I actually won't give it all away. But you know what? It's such a big thing, especially when you are, transitioning from an identity. And I have to put context to this. Sometimes your first identity may have not been your authentic identity. And maybe it was just you going through those, I guess, beautiful milestones of growth, right? But I find that the most important part is really figuring out, like, what are you here to do? But also, like, who you are as a person, like, what are the things you love? and that's where you start to really look at from different categories. And they talk about the branding pillars. But when it comes to your brand personality or building a personal brand, there's so many variables of that. But from a business sense, and for anyone listening, they teach you, or like, let me say this, the guru of branding teach you, like, as I said, like the look and feel. I want to know the connection, and that's where you start to look at your stories. Kind of like when we started this beautiful podcast, like the question we normally ask is, what are three, and it's hard to say three significant events in your life that have shaped you for who you are? And I always talk about the homelessness. I talk about my career changes. And I talk about also like stepping into being a speaker on stage, like for the time that I'm in right now. And those events get to become micro topics too. And from that, then we start to look at like the pillars of like your attributes, the uniqueness about you, your voice, your tonality, your belief systems, your values. And I can talk about this all day. But if you were to talk about those events that have shaped you for who you are and the people you associate with too. And sometimes if that's hard for you guys to do, what do you like in other brands? What are you attracted to? What are the things that you like to buy? And then we look at the psychology of that, which is another layer of like going down a rabbit hole. But just kind of like what you said before, Jason, like with your journey from being, a teacher to then speaking and now like doing the things that you guys are doing now, like they're moments of you, and that's has shaped you for who you are now. So how do we bring that more of that out, with building your authority and like who you associate with? And that's kind of, again, part of like what we love to do when it comes to personal branding too. But don't start with the logo. Start with me and I'll get you guys there. And then we worry about the website and all that jargon.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Just wondering, because I know for me, it's still a journey. And I know that when I started this personal growth journey, building my awareness, it was really challenging. So I'm wondering, how do people know when they're authentic? Because we're so clouded by society, by our upbringing, by our limiting beliefs, by everything that's put on us, that I feel like we eventually get to this point where we're so bogged down, we just have no idea who we are at our core. So how do you know when you're starting to be authentic?
I love that question.
Wow. I can use an analogy when it comes to speaking on stage, and I find that it's kind of like when you have the script of your life or the script of, the arena, and I find your message, who you are. But if you start to go into your mind and start to like listen to all the people's words and moments in time and you get all buggled up, it's coming back to home, right? And home is you. And it's going into that sort of heart center we spoke about before, right? And I think it's also owning your intuition and owning your power. And I find that a lot of the times when it's being authentic, naturally we go back into pretend or our negative, or even, as I said, listening to other people, and our limiting beliefs come up. I find that when I'm in self-doubt, that is a sign that there is false evidence appearing real. And I know I have to take a moment to go, where am I coming back to in my body? How do I ground myself? How do I speak to, if I'm going to be honest, speak to myself out loud about what's coming up for me, what feels good? And I think you'll always know in those moments, it's like, does this feel in line with what I'm here to do? I think that always helps, babe. I would love to give you the manuscript and the secret pill, but it always comes back to you. So never let anyone tell you that you're meant to be doing this when you know deep in your soul. You can have leaders and mentors to show you the way. That's what mentors are for. They're not to tell you to do this. Your decision within yourself, and you just trust and lean.
Love that. Coming back to your message.
Yeah.
Working out your message and going back to your heart space, because we do eventually know, right? It's just, I think, sitting with that, giving yourself time, because we're so busy going from one thing to the next that we don't allow time to be present, to actually feel into things and to ask ourselves these deep questions and actually get proper, curious, authentic answers from those questions, So creating that space for yourself, I feel, is also really important.
Yeah.
So important. And babe, let me tell you, I'm always like, authenticity is important, but there's moments where I'm in facade, and that's when ego comes, and it's like, okay, Tamara, let's come back down. What's going on here? And you can always feel that.
Exactly. And it's a constant journey. I think that's important for the listeners to take, is everything's a constant journey.
Yeah.
Our well-being, our health, our happiness, our business, being authentic, all the things we've spoken about. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't put pressure on yourself that you want it to be done quickly, because that's also the ego speaking too. We want instant gratification. We want everything to work out. We want it now. But it takes consistency. It takes time. And some days, like you said, Tam, you feel like you've taken a few steps back and you're like, oh, I know I have those moments. Oh, I've reverted to old Lauren, I'm getting the same thoughts and the same feelings and I'm doing the same behaviors. But it's like, okay, but I've got all these tools in my toolbox now. Let's come back to them.
Part of being you too is being human, right? So like, as I said before, like I can be this entrepreneur and business owner, and then there's moments where I'm like, I just want to sleep in and be lazy and swear at traffic and get angry at people, but that's true to me, because I'm fiery and I'm direct, and I can be all of those things too. And sometimes it's not about going back to old, but it's just knowing that like, we are all parts, good and bad, right?
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to a comment you made just before about, having the mentor there. And what I thought when you were saying that was mentors are great because they can pave that path. They can show you the way, but they can't take the steps for you. And like Lauren said as well, that's when the ego comes in. It's like, well, I've paid this mentor. I should be getting the results. Yes, you will get the results if you do the work.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, just sitting back to who we are, ourselves, and thinking, hey, if that's the destination I want to go to, if that's what I want out of going with this mentor, they've got the path there. They've lit the way. I now need to walk the walk. And it's
show commitment.
Yeah, it's coming back just to say, hey, even for us going into a workplace, to remember that we're there and we can show them the path, but it's then up to them to then do the work.
Yeah. I the big R word of responsibility comes up, and I'll give you a complete transparency right now. I remember when things would go wrong in the business, like with teams, I'd be like, why did you do this? Why is this not done? And it's like that pointing finger is really my responsibility in that moment too. And I also remember starting off my business in the business space because I felt like I needed to prove myself around getting clients results, that if they didn't get results, it was my fault. So then I'd people please, I'd go above and beyond. But also coming from a place of, I've got mentors too, and I've been in mentorships where it became really codependent, and it became almost like I lost my sense of self and power because they were making decisions for me. And so I find that what we should be doing, or let me rephrase that, what we choose to do gets to be an opportunity to show people that come into our space that this is self-led. And it's taught me to create a sense of like concepts, but more around like rules when it comes to when you do work with clients or when you have mentors. It's like you set the rules at the very beginning, like you lead the way, you tell them what to do, but it's up to them to meet you there. And it hits me every time too, because we love what we do so much. We want our clients to get the results, but they have to do the work too, just like we do. So I get it so much, so much.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a random question for Tam that's just popped in.
Here we go. What's this going to be?
No, it's not that. It's not that. We're not talking about penis candles like we
did.
Fancy we're going to bring it up in the podcast, won't we? We need to give context to this, because if someone's just listening to the audio, they're going to be like, what?
penis
So in Tam's background, she's got books, she's got awards, and then there's this candle that's in the shape of a penis.
Yeah. She's now kissing it.
We're going to stop there. This is turning into sex.
I know. Well, that is Tam being authentic.
Yeah.
The penis candle is a symbol of Tam and her energy, That's not my question, Jason.
Okay. I don't know where you're going with it.
No, okay.
It'll come back to you. It was a random one.
Rewind. I know the question. So Tam, my question for you, I know you've been in business for a little while, and like you said, you've sort of changed, pivoted. Now you're in this space, you know exactly where you want to go, and you feel this calling. So I'm really curious, and I want to know, what is your big vision? What's your big mission and vision that you see?
Okay, the biggest thing I was really feeling when you said that was I really see this becoming an opportunity to really build a space for entrepreneurs to bring forward. I'm seeing talk shows like an Oprah, but for entrepreneurial space. I think it's because since having this podcast that I've built, I really love connecting with people, and I've learned so much from the space that we've had these guest speakers. So the vision is to have that global impact where it becomes a talk show like an Oprah Winfrey, but we get people like, Lewis Howes or Jay Shetty. That's my big vision. But also as well, coming back to, because I believe when I first started, it was just about me. But coming back to like my true impact and that little girl when I was homeless and going through all of that, like I really want to be really of service to helping other people who don't have the money, the education, maybe the best role models when it comes to really like building that empire. And I think that I want to be that point of difference to help other people experience that as well. So building that foundation, seeing that becoming an opportunity for people at a younger age. Because even like, if I'm honest, like my brother and I'm only now getting tested for ADHD, right? And my brother has Asperger's, and we used to get put in this box at school for being different. And so I think we need to start helping children at a younger age to being able to identify their zone of genius, and I went through so many turbulences to recognize owning who I am and expanding on that. So I think that's the big vision from like fucking 10 years time to helping younger people to really build that entrepreneur in them, right? And the agency that we're building at the moment too. So that's on a global scope as well. And it starts from now, if we talk about mission and the vision, we want to start to make those milestones and the steps in the moment that we're in now. So that's kind of where my brain and my big, audacious, crazy, big dick energy is going, So
Yeah.
I answered your question, babe.
Yeah, you did.
100%. Tam, I can totally see you being on the talk show host with a live audience there, and you get a car, they get a car. I love it.
Going to that.
I love that you said that, because one of our programs has an Oprah Winfrey component to it, which is how we name you'll one day learn, we name our concepts based on celebrities and also people that I'm like absolutely obsessed with. So I love that you bring that up. That'd be the dream, and I think nothing is ever impossible. I think a lot of people feel when they say these big dreams or this, big dick energy stuff, that it's too much, or it's like, oh, I've said that, now I've got to, really action it. It's like, go nuts, go big or go home. And I think that's a real key message that I really want to instill in people,
Yeah, I love that.
We're a bit like that too, you've only got so much time on this planet in this lifetime, so you might as well make the most of it. Whether you want to grow this massive empire or whether you just want to build a life where you do the things that you love more and you have a sense of balance, and maybe you build a beautiful family and you have those present moments. And that's what we're about. It's, we don't really believe that we're here on this earth just to work and go on the hamster wheel and go round, 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 and that's it. And then we're in our grave and you die with all of your regrets and all of your dreams that you never had out. Where do you want to go and travel? Do you want to build your relationship? Do you want to have an amazing family? Do you want to buy that house? Do you want to buy that boat? Do you want to do the business? Do you want to step on stage? Whatever it is. And that's what we're about too. It's like helping corporate people, busy people thrive. What does that look like for you? Because everyone's different.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to speak on stage. Not everyone wants to earn $1 million a year. It's fine too. But what does your thriving best life look like for you?
Yeah. I love
That's so important too. I think, as you said, like going back to that authenticity piece, like that is exactly it. Like what makes you thrive, and that gets to be your part and piece to building that with authenticity. Success and whatever that looks like is different for everyone. So I really am excited to see this space, guys.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to see the space that you're going as well.
Yeah.
The talk show is going to be here before you know it.
What'd you say?
I said the talk show is going to be here before you know it. It's going to be.
Let's do it next year.
Yeah. If people wanted to follow along the journey, Tam, to perhaps one day be in the live audience of Tam's talk show, whatever it's going to be called, where can people find you?
So my Instagram is Tamara Myer Coach. I also have a podcast, Keys to the Queendom. And again, we've got a live event happening on the Gold Coast and in Sydney, which is called Show Up, Sell and Scale. That is all to do with finding your authenticity and social media marketing, and then bringing that to being able to sell through storytelling and building a personal brand. So I hope that's going to be in writing because that's a lot of stuff there.
100%. It'll be in the show notes below. So if you did catch and miss any of that, or you just want to click on a link to make things easier, it's down in the show notes below.
Amazing. And then we have one more question for you, Tam.
Is it the random one? Is it the random
one? I guess.
It's a planned one.
You're going to do this one. We've done all the random ones.
Yeah.
So if you had 30 to 60 seconds of advice to our listeners, can be something we've spoken about, be something completely different, what would that advice be?
Okay. It would be to show up no matter what and don't buy into people's comments and negativity or whatever they believe you have to do. It's knowing who you are and what you are here to do. And I believe in imperfect actions. Do the thing, worry about it later. It's been my whole life, my whole journey. If I can do it, you can do it as well. So play big and big dick energy, guys.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode.
If you got value from this episode, it would mean the world to us if you could take 20 seconds out of your day and leave a 5-star rating and written review.
And remember, you have the power to make a lasting change in your workplace.